Lucas, you tell me when to go. We are stalling till they get the new, all right, he gave me the thumbs up. So calling to order the bi-weekly Board of Mayor and Alderman BOMA meeting. Stipulation members present, again, all 9 of us are here. We are again joined on the dais by our acting city recorder, Miss Watson, our city attorney, Mr. Carter, and he acts a lot, and our city administrator, Miss Caskey. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pastor House.
May we pray. God of grace, God of mercy, we thank you for the privilege to be able to share our convictions in such a place. So God, we ask for blessings on the mayor, the alderman, the staff. We ask God for your blessings on those who are going to share their voices throughout this community. Thank you, God, and give them the mouthpiece to share. Give the alderman and mayor the ear to listen and the heart to feel the pain and points. We ask God for unity. We ask you for harmony because we are better together. And after everything is sorted and everything is shared, we ask that you would just work everything out. Thank you, God, for this city. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Pastor House. Approval of the agenda. As written, are there any additions or subtractions? All those in favor to approve the agenda say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Agenda is approved as written. Mayor's comments. I just want to say today that some of those who may not know, hello online, this week starts what they call National Public Works Week. And ours, the Spring Hill Public Works Department, is absolutely bar none, second to none. So if you go watch this online, I see Tyler Scroggins out there, I see TC, I'll see him later, TC. Our Public Works Department, everybody that's involved in that is bar none, amazing, amazing group of people. And I'm glad that somebody somewhere someday invented a Public Works Week because they are the unsung heroes that do so many things. And most recently, the city of Spring Hill responded to a tornado that happened over a week ago, and we were the first on the scene, and we took command. And I'll talk about the fire department later in the meeting, but it's Public Works time. Those guys were out there right away, removing debris, helping in search and rescue, everything that is above, and they're continually staying out there to help removal debris. Public Works, you guys are amazing. Thank you. Retirement of military banner. So if we could get first up, Corporal Madison, are you here? I didn't see you yet. Okay. Well, you want to come up, sir, and the other, Mr. Chief Billmans, if you guys will come up and get ready. Upright, stand in front of the dais right here. For those of you guys who may not know this, one of the great things the city of Spring Hill does that I'm very proud of is that we have a military banner. We honor our veterans. We honor our active duty military that are serving in all branches of the service, to include the new enacted Space Force. And so as you drive around the city, there's a couple streets that have military banners such as this around. That's basically saying, the city of Spring Hill honors you. Every once in a while we retire some of those banners for various reasons, and tonight we're retiring Madison's banner, and I'm going to read a few words about this amazing Marine. This is Corporal Madison Zanchi. She enlisted in the United States Marine Corps on September 16, 2019 as an avionic technician. She attended MCT, which trains every Marine to be a rifleman, and attended A school in Pensacola, Florida, where she received her F-35B orders. In C school on Eglin Air Force Base, she received her orders to Japan. During her time in Japan, she was tasked out on 3 boats, which took her to Tokyo multiple times, also to Okinawa, Singapore, Guam, and the Philippines. During one of the boats, she received a certificate of commendation for her remarkable work performed. In November of 2022, Lance Corporal Zanchi was trusted with her abilities and received the qualification of Collateral Duty Inspector. During September of 2023, Lance Corporal Zanchi participated in a training exercise in Yuma, Arizona, which led to her receiving a Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal for her outstanding work. During this time, she also became a low power turn qualification, meaning she performed at a higher level than her peers. Lance Corporal Zanchi was also one of 3 Marines nominated for the Aviation Marine of the Year for 2023. In March of 2024, Lance Corporal Zanchi's squadron, VMFA 121, was deployed to Korea to be a part of another training exercise, and here she received another certificate of commendation for her outstanding performance from January 2024 to March 2024. During her time in Korea, Lance Corporal Zanchi was nominated for Marine of the Quarter for her squadron, and she won. This award moved her nomination to compete against other squadrons in the Marine Aircraft Group. Lance Corporal Zanchi then won the MAG Marine of the Quarter award as well. In March of 2024, Lance Corporal Zanchi got promoted to Corporal Zanchi while detached in Korea. Corporal Zanchi is currently still stationed overseas in the United States Marine Corps and plans to leave active duty military in September 24. Ladies and gentlemen, the City of Spring Hill is proud to honor Corporal Madison Zanchi. Do you want to, Lucas, want to get a photo? Are you guys good? All right, guys, come on up. Okay, one of the greatest things about being in the military is it teaches you to be flexible. And our superiors call that rigid flexibility. So there is a little bit of a snafu going on, is that unfortunately Chief Billman, his banner is not available for y'all to see, but we are going to give it to him at another time. But we're still going to honor him and retire his banner, because the words that speak to Chief Billman are admirable, they are spot on, and his family is here to support him. And so, again, the city of Spring Hill, sir, honors you, and here we go. This is Jason Billman, United States Navy, retired. Chief Billman enlisted in the Navy in August 1997 in Nashville, Tennessee. He completed basic training in November 1997 and reported to A School in Pensacola, Florida. After completion of A School, his first tour was Secondron, Squadron 21, located in Atsugi, Japan. He had deployments on the USS Independence and USS Kitty Hawk from April 1998 to April 2003. Chief Billman was selected to the P-3 Flight Engineer Program and reported to NACCS Pensacola, Florida in June of 2003, where he completed Air Crew School. He then reported to VP-30 Flight Engineer School. Chief Billman reported to VP-8 in Brunswick, Maine in July 2004 to July 2009, where he completed 5 deployments and numerous detachments to various countries across the world, having flown over 2,100 hours in an airplane. After VP-8, he was looking for something challenging and was hand-selected to tour with the Old Buzzards of VPU-1. Chief Billman reported to Special Projects Patrol Squadron 1 in Jacksonville, Florida in August of 2009, where he was stationed from August 2009 to September 2012. During his tour at VPU-1, he flew 1,900 hours and 13 detachments in support operations of Iraq, Afghanistan, and Africa. In 2012, Chief Billman transferred to Navy Recruiting District, Nashville, where he was a recruiter and leading petty officer for the Franklin and Columbia offices. While there, he was selected for Leading Petty Officer of the Year. His next assignment was Fleet Air Reconnaissance Squadron 1 in March 2016. While attached to VQ-1, he would deploy to Southwest Asia, operations to support Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Inherent Resolve, and deploy to Pacific Command, European Command, Africa Command, and Southern Command in support of operations abroad. He finished with over 5,400 flight hours as a flight engineer. In March of 2019, Chief Billman would finish his career back at NTAG Nashville, where he would be selected for Chief Petty Officer and oversee operations for all future sailors waiting to ship to boot camp. His personal awards include the Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal, 1 cluster, Navy Marine Corps Achievement Medal, 6 clusters, Strike Flight Air Medal, 9 clusters, Military Outstanding Volunteer Service Medal, and various campaign and service awards. Chief Billman is a proud father of his 15-year-old daughter, Grace. Chief Billman retired from active duty on August 31st, 2023, after 26 years of faithful naval service. Since retiring, he has been a substitute teacher in Murray County. He was just recently selected to be the new naval science instructor at Columbia High School, starting in the year 2024 and 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to present Chief Billman and his family. Ms. Caskey.
Yes, I am very pleased to announce and introduce to you, those who have not already known her from before, our new Development Service Director, Ms. Dara Sanders. She started a week ago. Do not expect her to quote the UDC by heart yet. Give her a few days for that. But anyway, Dara, say hello to the group.
Good evening, everyone. Just want to say I'm so pleased to be back in Spring Hill after being away for, gosh, I think 5 years. A lot has changed in 5 years. But so far, it seems to be still the wonderful Spring Hill that I left at heart. So I'm just so honored that you would have me back, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know who's happier, me or Dwayne. We keep fighting about it. But we're thrilled she's here, and as you could expect, she's taken off on a run, so, and we'll keep chasing her. Thanks, Dara, for joining us.
At this time, are there any citizen comments that can welcome to say anything, with the exception of what's on the public hearing? Okay. Ms. Watson.
Ordinance 2405 to repeal existing Title 11, Article 402, Section 10 of the Municipal Code, unnecessary noise standard with relation to construction of repairing buildings, and replace with new regulations. Ordinance 2406 to amend Title 15, Chapter 1 of the Municipal Code.
Thank you. If our two police people will come over. What? I will when I get to it. Okay. All right. So with those two public hearing items, are there any citizen comments with regards to the two public hearing items? Any of them? Okay. Thank you.
Members of the board tonight, the City of Spring Hill, Mayor Hageman is going to recognize two Spring Hill police officers for their job performance in two separate criminal investigations. The first one is Detective Gillum, who was assigned a fraud case involving a business that had a check stolen that was converted over to over $200-something. They cashed out. At the end of the investigation, over 12 people were involved and over $19 million. The second one is Detective Andrew Burdett. We had a overdose here in Spring Hill, which resulted in the death of a Spring Hill resident. Detective Burdett did his due diligence, was able to identify where the drugs came from, who was the manufacturer seller, and both of these cases went to the federal prosecution, and they both did a lot of hard work, time, and effort put into these cases. So I'll turn it over to Mayor.
Thank you, Chief. So last week, Detective Burdett was awarded something from the Attorney General for Middle Tennessee. Here's the letter. This is the award, which says Department of Justice, Office of the United States Attorney, Middle District of Tennessee, 2024 Award for Excellence in Law Enforcement, presented to Detective Andy Burdett, Spring Hill Police Department. This is the writing that accompanied that prestigious award. Before the pandemic, and this is a quote, this is a letter written by Mr. Leventis. Here's what he wrote. Before the pandemic, the Davidson County Fentanyl Working Group, which included representatives from the DEA, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Davidson County District Attorney's Office, the Metro Fire Department, the Metro Nashville Police Department, the Metro Public Health Department, and the Medical Examiner's Office regularly met to discuss the opioid epidemic and to share knowledge to combat the epidemic from all fronts. During one meeting, the group was advised that medical professionals from Davidson County had noted the presence of blue powder when providing medical care to overdose victims. Officials immediately began investigating the blue powder and quickly identified Markel Peoples and his brother, Christopher Johnson, as a source of supply of both blue powder, heroin, and fentanyl. Through extensive investigation efforts, officials were able to show that Peoples' distribution of controlled substances caused an overdose that resulted in the death of a young woman in Spring Hill. Spring Hill Police Department Detective Andy Burdett investigated the overdose as a homicide. The investigation was proactive, involving several undercover drug buys. Detective Burdett was able to identify the suspects as supplying the narcotics to the victim. When they were arrested, both Peoples and Johnson had multiple firearms in their possessions. They both pleaded guilty and received significant sentences, with Peoples being sentenced to 16 years in federal prison. For his outstanding work during the investigation and prosecution of this case, the United States Attorney General Award for Excellence is presented to Spring Hill Police Department Detective Andy Burdett. Ladies and gentlemen, Detective Andy Burdett. In addition to this award, the city would like to present you, sir, with a certificate of appreciation that reads, Detective Andrew Burdett, in appreciation of your excellent work in the Spring Hill Police Department and your efforts to make Spring Hill and the state of Tennessee a safer place. Thank you, sir. Standing next to Detective Burdett is now, I understand, you've been promoted to sergeant. Is that correct? Congratulations. Standing next to Sergeant Burdett is another one of our fine Spring Hill Police staff. I'm going to read something about her. This was a letter that was written to me. It came in from the vice president of a company, and his name is Scott Gould. Here's what he said. He said, Dear Mayor Hageman, on behalf of Element Critical, I am writing this letter to commend the Spring Hill Police Department, and in particular, Detective Stephanie Gillum. In August of 2023, our company mailed a sizable business check from our office in Austin, Texas, to a vendor in St. Louis, Missouri. The check was intercepted, washed, and cashed for over $214,000 at a bank in Spring Hill, Tennessee. After learning of this issue, we contacted the United States Post Office Inspection Service, the Austin Police Department, and the Spring Hill Police Department. Although we got little to no support from the U.S. Postal Inspection Service or Austin Police, our complaint was fortunately assigned to Detective Gillum within your department. From the start, it was clear Detective Gillum took offense to crime in her jurisdiction, and she was committed to holding those responsible accountable. Our bank and the bank responsible for cashing the check, both well-known global brands, seemed unwilling to seriously investigate our fraud complaint. As Detective Gillum worked the criminal investigation, she pressed the banks for answers. After months of no progress from the banks, it seemed as though our business would be burdened with a significant loss. However, Detective Gillum pressed on. She continued to provide me with regular updates, including steps she had taken, requests made, and her strategy moving forward. After 6 months of chasing the funds and pursuing those responsible for stealing the check, Detective Gillum turned up the pressure on the bank that cashed the check. Once she notified the bank of her intent to take additional steps to trace the funds, the bank abruptly returned the money to our account. We are sure that if it had not been for Detective Gillum and the Spring Hill Police Department, we would still be saddened with this loss. I cannot thank Detective Gillum enough for her thoughtfulness, perseverance, and professionalism in her pursuit for justice for Element Critical. So that's what that gentleman wrote, Mr. Gould wrote. I would like to, and then as the chief alluded to, here's the results of that investigation. At the end of the investigation, the suspect was a part of a 12-person, $19 million stolen wash checks investigation, and the suspect was arrested on March 12th of 2024 in reference to this case and multiple other investigations throughout the federal government. Again, Detective Gillum we would like to present you with a certificate of appreciation, Detective Stephanie Gillum, in appreciation of your excellent work in the Spring Hill Police Department and your efforts to make Spring Hill and the state of Tennessee a safer place. Ladies and gentlemen, Detective Stephanie Gillum. At this time, we're on item 3 on our agenda, presentation by Kelly Tucker.
While Kelly is coming forward, let me do a little introduction. Kelly is a Spring Hill resident who is now finished. Did you graduate, Kelly?
Next week.
Next week. So a soon-to-be graduate of MIT. Last summer, she interned for us in GIS. She was so capable of doing work that we so needed to have done that we kept her on in a limited part-time capacity because GIS is really one of those things you can work from anywhere to do. And what are you looking for? It's right here. No, right here. There it is. Thank you. So she has been working on the bike and greenway plan for us, and today she is going to do a part of her required work, which is to capstone this her project with a presentation to the board about what she has found. So thank you for giving her attention, your attention, and please thank her at the end of her presentation for the hard work she's done. I understand she's going to spend some more time with us this summer, so I'm excited. I have a list.
Ms. Tucker, just real quickly for the record, in case somebody didn't hear it, what's that higher ed institution you go to, or again, what's that called?
I go to MIT.
What does that stand for?
Massachusetts Institute of Technology.
MIT. MIT. Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you for the introduction. We're doing the presentation in a bit of a weird way because of technical difficulties, but
Can you speak into the mic better?
yeah, can you hear me?
There we go.
Okay, sorry about that. So as Pam mentioned, my name is Kaylee Tucker. I grew up actually just outside of city limits, so I'm not technically a Spring Hill resident, but I feel like part of Spring Hill. I went to Murray County schools for 2nd through 12th grade, so, you know, I grew up here. I am here today to tell you about my master's thesis. I have been at MIT for 5 years now, so I did a 5-year program. The first 4 years I got my bachelor's in urban planning and computer science, and this year, actually in a week, I'm about to get my master in city planning. So I'm here to talk to you about my thesis, which is about Spring Hill and walkability in Spring Hill. I got to work with Casey Williams, Parks and Rec director, and my thesis advisor at MIT was Aron Ben Joseph, one of my professors. So I am just really excited to be here. A lot of you on the board and even more in the room I got to talk to for this research process. So thank you all for, you know, participating, and I hope you're excited to see what came out of your contributions. So, all right, let's get into it. I don't know if the clicker is working.
Do I need to drive?
If you don't mind, I'll just say next slide if that's okay. Thank you. So a little bit of background. I am a pedestrian at heart. I love walking. So when I was looking for topics to do for my undergraduate thesis and I found the bicycle and greenway plan, I knew that I had found my topic and I was really excited to get to work in my hometown. So the title kind of makes it sound like a document that is purely recreational in its intentions and priorities, but it really reads like a very broad and practical case for active transportation, meaning walking and cycling and other human-powered modes of mobility. So while my thesis does touch on bike access a little bit, the primary focus will be walkability and pedestrian infrastructure. I really wanted to understand what Spring Hill was doing to improve pedestrian access and whether it was enough to provide meaningful walkability across town. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the case for walkability, it's important for a lot of reasons. Building movement into your routine is really important for a healthy lifestyle. It improves quality of life, whether it's for fun or just for peace. It provides access for those who cannot or do not want to drive, especially kids. This is a big one, reduces congestion, because every trip that's made possible on foot takes a car off the road. So obviously we care about that a lot in Spring Hill. And it also allows residents to feel more connected to the city. Something that Casey said to me earlier in the process was that when people go out and enjoy a place, it really causes them to fall in love with it and become protective of it. So it comes as like a larger benefit to the whole community. And in particular, pedestrian safety really matters to everybody, because even if you drive absolutely everywhere, the moment you step out of your car into a parking lot, you're becoming a pedestrian. So next slide, please. This is the Bike and Greenway Plan. I know you've all seen it, so I won't dwell on it too long. This is where it starts. It identifies different attractors and generators across town, and eventually it will propose a few different types of infrastructure. So on the next slide, I'm just going to do a quick overview since I'll be using these words a lot. Greenways are wide, pieces of infrastructure that usually are disconnected from roads, so you can get off of the road network and take a nice little stroll. And on the next slide, you'll see that multi-use paths, or multi-use trails, are the similar type of infrastructure, same width and material, but they are usually next to roads. On the next slide, you'll see bike lanes, which, like I said, I won't touch on too much, but are a dedicated strip of the road that is for cyclists. So on the next slide, you will see the final Bike and Greenway Plan. This is from the 2021 update. And I had never read an entire active transportation plan before I got into this, so I used my undergraduate thesis as an opportunity to do some case studies and get an idea of what was normal and learn some lessons. So on the next slide, and you can jump forward one more, I did 3 case studies, and these were just places that had something in common with Spring Hill in one way or another. I won't dwell on these too long because this was done 2 years ago, and it's not as fresh in my mind as the rest of it. So let's jump forward 2 slides, please. The overall takeaways are just that once recreational facilities are placed, it can warrant more utilitarian connections, like, a multi-use trail or a sidewalk that goes to a greenway. School zones are highly prioritized for active transportation facilities. Infrastructure, policymaking, and social programs must go hand in hand for a successful network. And what they often meant by social programs was events that teach people about how to cycle safely and, how to share the road and all of these things. And then partnerships, whether it be private-public partnerships or between the county and the city, are also really important. So on the next slide, I interviewed 16 people about their perceptions of walkability and pedestrian infrastructure in Spring Hill. The one-on-one interviews were each about an hour long, conducted over Zoom, and in one exception, somebody responded to questions over email. These are 13 of the respondents. The other 3 that are not named were folks from the private development community, whether they were developers or consultants who work with developers. So I had a really interesting spread of voices. So again, thank you all for participating. I learned a lot from these interviews, and tonight I'm going to focus primarily on what I learned about Spring Hill's existing approach to pedestrian infrastructure, and then talk about the opportunities that I saw for strengthening and maximizing those efforts. And many of these ideas came from interviewees themselves, so I'm kind of just consolidating and giving it back to you. Next slide, please. So these are the 3 major categories that I found of pedestrian infrastructure projects. We have new development, the neighborhood sidewalk program, and grants for the Bike and Greenway Plan. And these parentheses that are on the slide are not comprehensive. A lot of groups have eyes on all of these things. Obviously, this board has eyes on every single one of these things in one way or another. And, Planning Commission is involved in new development. So these, like I said, these aren't comprehensive, but it's kind of a generalization. And many of the people I spoke to were really hopeful that Spring Hill has eyes on, like so many different people have eyes on pedestrian infrastructure in some way, and they have hope that the city will become more walkable over time because of this web of teamwork that's happening. So on the next slide, and then, yeah, there we go. Let's talk about new development. So as you know, anytime a new development intersects with a section of the Bike and Greenway plan, they're required to either build the proposed infrastructure or come to an agreement about what else is appropriate. And even if the segment doesn't connect to anything yet, it is really important that things get built when we can get them built, because then over time, obviously the idea is that more developments will fill in, or the city will be able to come in and fill in those gaps, and then there'll be this large network over time. That's the idea of the plan. And so the fact that the plan exists and is adopted and is being followed is really, really awesome. It's getting things done. You know, if this plan wasn't adopted, if it wasn't being looked at by development services and planning commission, then nothing we have would probably be built. And so, this was just a really big success in my eyes, and I think it's a really cool thing. So on the next slide, I will just talk about some opportunities related to this category, making connections to new mixed-use developments that create active walking or attractive walking environments. So these new developments that are coming in that put walkability as a really important part of their project are a really great opportunity to connect into and create these walkable nodes that can just expand outward and reach more of Spring Hill. Continuing to be flexible with exact route placement. This comes from some comments from the developers who were really pleased with the way that the city's staff have been flexible in placing the exact routes of things that they're required to build, whether it be for topography reasons, whatever it is that makes it so that the exact line that's drawn on that document isn't reasonable. They said that it's really great when the city is flexible and finding something that works best for everybody. And then finally, consider establishing a bicycle and greenway implementation fund. This is kind of the big one here. So using similar logic to traffic impact fees, you could consider looking at the network impact of adding pedestrians to an area with new development, and then collect a fee for filling nearby network gaps that would be difficult to fund otherwise because they're, out of reach of where a new development will be, so nobody's going to pay for it in that way, or it's a little too small for a grant or doesn't quite fit into the neighborhood sidewalk program. This could be a fund that addresses those more complicated sort of projects that come up. And yeah, so let's go to the next slide and we'll talk about the neighborhood sidewalk program. As you all know, this is a really great opportunity to fill in gaps in neighborhoods that were built before the code required sidewalks on both sides of the street. This is also an opportunity for projects that address threats to pedestrian safety. So on the next slide, we'll look at a sidewalk gap that Alderman Cox told me about. And this is one where, you all know about this, I'm sure, so I won't spend too long on it, but the city has right-of-way, but the trees are in the right-of-way. We want to save the trees, so you have to do a project to get the sidewalk to go around, because on the next slide, you'll see the street view. It is a scary spot. You're on a sidewalk and all of a sudden it ends, and you have to choose between walking through private property or going over tree roots that cause a trip hazard, and then ducking under a fence just to get to this commercial area that's right across the fence and would be really attractive for people to walk to. So it's great that this is being addressed. And on the next slide, here are some opportunities related to the neighborhood sidewalk program. Walk audits are a really great opportunity to emphasize the urgency of safety improvements. So really getting out there in the field saying, hey, can I get from this neighborhood to this school, or from this, from City Hall to nearby neighborhoods, and just trying to walk there yourself and seeing exactly where the tension points are, where the scary parts are, and be able to address those more systematically. Being proactive about improvements in areas that are most likely to attract pedestrians. So school zones, greenway trailheads, these are things that we know exist or we know will be coming when there's new construction, and can look in those areas and specifically see the nearby neighborhoods, the nearby commercial areas, and how those can be connected into as part of the process of building the larger thing. And then finally, putting unused funds toward other pedestrian improvements. So the neighborhood sidewalk program doesn't get fully utilized every year. And so that extra money could go into that bike and greenway plan implementation fund I referenced earlier, and then just build up an opportunity to, or build up a way to take opportunities when they come. So on the next slide, we will talk about grants for the bike and greenway plan. This is the third category of the way things are done now. Let's see. The Peter Jenkins Walking Trail Extension is a great example of a successful project that was completed using a grant. This one, as you all know, I'm sure, connects a neighborhood walking trail to a school property and gives lots of kids the opportunity to walk to school safely. So, looking for more things like this is just awesome, and that's what Casey and her team are doing, of course. And grants are a great opportunity to maximize tax dollars because, they require some sort of matching fund, and then you get to build something even bigger than the city's money alone would have done. On the next slide, thank you. Similar to the Parkland Acquisition Fund that you all have been building up and have recently been able to use to a great result, I'm sure it will be. You could use that logic and put money into that bike and greenway implementation fund so that if a grant comes up, then the matching money is already there ready, or whatever it may be. So, and then the last opportunity that I'll mention for the bike and greenway plan is including sidewalks on the next update. Because when you just look at the MUTs and the greenways and the bike lanes, you're not seeing the full picture of how people are experiencing their trip from one place to another. So this could allow us to have a more specific or a more accurate prioritization of which projects will have the best impact. And last summer when I was in the planning internship, I did make a sidewalk GIS layer, so this is something that is now possible, and I would be happy to work on if Pam wants me to. And on the next slide, just some miscellaneous opportunities that didn't quite fit into my three categories. Catching up on ADA requirements. Tyler told me about the backlog of things that need to be updated, and I think that while people are out in the field, it's a great opportunity to just look around and think, if I were trying to get to that thing in my site right now, could I do it safely? And then that can be another way to build up these more detailed sort of interventions that could improve pedestrian safety. And then continuing to use road widenings to fund active transportation infrastructure. It's been really awesome to see Duplex become such a walkable road because of that road widening and being able to, make the MUT happen in the process. And the same thing with Buckner. So I would just, say great job with that and keep on going. And then create a pedestrian page on the website. It can be a little bit hard to find information, and it would just be cool to, the neighborhood sidewalk program is pretty easy to find from the website in the headers, but creating a landing page for all of these resources so that residents who want to improve their communities can find exactly what is accessible to them. And then finally, this is sort of like the more difficult ask, is eventually hiring a long-range planner. Lots of the interviewees that I spoke to showed a lot of interest in having somebody who could not just pay attention to walkability, but the larger goals that are presented in the Spring Hill Rising 2040 plan, the Bike and Greenway plan, all of these plans that are adopted, but it's hard to pay attention to them when everyone's just putting out the fire of the day. So having somebody who's dedicated to these things.
Interested in coming home?
I'm actually moving to Oregon.
I was afraid.
Sorry. All right, next slide. So this is just a summary broken down by recreational, meaning bike and greenway plan, non-recreational, meaning sidewalks, and then by the city, by developers, and then infill or retrofit versus greenfield. And it's kind of a lot to take in, but this is just how it was easy for me to understand all of the projects that are happening right now and the way that things are getting done. And on the next slide, you'll see sort of a slotting in of some of the proposals that I've made today and just the ways that you could augment your approach. On the next slide, I will just say that the newest parts of Spring Hill are being built with walkability in mind. The new developments are doing pretty well in their designs. And I think that the city just needs to keep a close eye and be proactive about the older parts of town, the gaps between parts of town, where two developments might sit next to each other, but there's nobody looking at the line. And many of the opportunities I've talked about today are just about the details of directing investment, not necessarily about big, budget line items that need to be taken on. So I hope that this is helpful. And on the next slide, I'll just say thanks so much for your time tonight. I've only really scratched the surface, so if you're interested in hearing more, this QR code will lead to my full thesis document. It's an intimidating 68 pages long, but the conclusion is a 2-page summary, and if you're interested in learning more, that's a great place to start. Or you can skip straight to chapter 4, which is where the interviews are discussed. And so you'll find, quotes from people I spoke to, and all of it sort of broken down by topic area. And that is all from me. Thank you so much. I will be happy to answer questions.
Artificial intelligence says that the state of Oregon has a bazillion more cicadas than Spring Hill.
Really? I didn't know that.
So, great presentation, Ms. Tucker, and thank you.
Thank you.
Lucas, could we get this presentation up so that the QR code will be available for people?
Yes, and
Thank
then I
you.
will put the slides also in the folder. Thank you.
Okay,
Seriously,
moving-
Kaylee, thank you very much for your work on this and for everything you did for us this summer. I'm looking forward to what you can achieve in the time you have left with us. Thank you.
Moving on, we are to the voting agenda of our meeting. Consent items, there are 10 of them. Ms. Watson.
Financial reports, BOMA minutes, department reports, committee commission minutes and reports. Consider Resolution 24103 lost my place, to approve funding for land acquisition purchase for tracks for Kedron Road and Ode Kedron Road. Consider Resolution 24104 to approve change order with Tennessee Department of Transportation for L1C1 of the I-65 interchange project for final striping and asphalt. Consider Resolution 24105 to authorize the sale of surplus equipment. Consider Resolution 24106 to approve a memorandum of understanding between the City of Spring Hill and University of Tennessee at Martin. Consider Resolution 24115 to approve the A&E contract with Kimley Horn for the Peter Jenkins Greenway Connector TAP Grant. Consider Resolution 24116 to approve renewal of contract for fire hydrant maintenance services.
Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve a consent agenda by Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
Second.
Second by Alderman Murray. Any discussion on consent? Please vote. Consent agenda carries 9-0. Thank you, Board. With regards to previous business, there are 2 items. One of 2 reads, consider second and final reading of ordinance 24-05 to repeal existing Title 11, Article 402, Section 10 of the Municipal Code, unnecessary noise standard with relation to construction of repairing buildings and replace with new regulations.
Mayor, I move that we approve the second and final reading of ordinance 24-05.
Motion to approve ordinance 2405 by Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
Second.
Second by Alderman Murray. Any discussion on this? Please vote. Second and final reading of ordinance 2405 carries 9-0. Thank you, Board. Item 2 of 2 of previous business reads, consider second and final reading of ordinance 24-06 to amend Title 15, Chapter 1 of the Municipal Code.
Mayor, I move that we approve the second and final reading of ordinance 24-06.
Motion to approve ordinance 2406 by Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
Second.
Second by Alderman Murray. Any discussion on this? Alderman Cox.
Thanks, Mayor. This evening at TAC, I had brought up adding to this ordinance Buckner Road. Currently, Buckner Road is not listed. However, we do have signs posted on Buckner Road. Although we were real short on time, we didn't come to a 100% unanimous consensus on this. Tyler had a comment, and I wanted to ask him to step up to just throw it out there before I make an amendment.
Good evening. What I had explained to the few minutes I had there was talking about Buckner Road, the connectivity between Highway 31 and the new interchange. As the new interchange becomes available for access to 65, I do see trucks utilizing Buckner Road to get to 65. And that's just one of my concerns. I think looking at the path, we don't want them going down Campbell Station. We don't want them using small local streets to get there. We just have to make sure if we're going to add this that we find a way through Garmin or somewhere with the GPSs to make sure that it gets in the system to direct them a different direction. I don't want this to be something like Beechcroft and the things we're fighting with over there as well. So.
Thanks, Tyler. So obviously the concern is that Buckner Road isn't, the shoulders are not there. It's a dangerous road if we have large trucks heading down there. So that's why I would like to make an amendment to this ordinance. An amendment to ordinance 2406 to add Buckner Road as one of the streets that shall be prohibited to have truck traffic on.
We have Alderman Fitter.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion to include an amendment brought up by Alderman Cox, seconded by Alderman Fitterer. Is there any discussion on this amendment? All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Mayor.
Oh, we can? Okay, thank you. Alderman Gavigan.
Thanks, Mayor. I don't see the sense in this amendment. I mean, I think if we divert roads from Buckner, they're going to utilize roads that are arguably less safe and can tear up just as much, if not more. And I do think that it is a major road and connector for these trucks to be utilizing. So to me, it doesn't make sense, and I'll vote no on the amendment.
Any further discussion? Alderman Fitter.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Alderman Cox, for bringing this forward to TAC. This is an amendment that should be passed and approved. Buckner Road has no shoulders, paint into the grass at some points. It is absolutely in no way in a condition to accommodate truck traffic. I think it will at some point in the future after we've modified it and improved it. But just to point out a couple other relevant facts from the Kroger Marketplace, traveling north on Highway 31 to 840 is approximately 2.9 miles. From the Kroger Marketplace, if you take it over to I-65, it's 2.85 miles. There's no distance savings by going Buckner Road to 65 versus going 31 to 840. Likewise, the Kroger Marketplace to Duplex Road is about 2.5 miles. So we do have appropriate state streets and state highways that can accommodate the truck traffic. I do not think in any way we'll see truck traffic diverting through neighborhoods. I think that's highly unlikely given the proximity of appropriate state roads at an equal distance.
You said, Alderman Fitter, that Duplex Road is state. That is State Road 247.
That is correct.
Yes, thank you. Alderman Fuqua? Okay.
I agree with both sides of the conversation. I'd like to ask Mr. Scroggins, can we get with the state to Alderman Fitterer's point, the distance between Kroger Marketplace and 840, that does not mean that they're not going to take the shortest, easiest route possible, which is continue 65 to June Lake Boulevard and then cross over. Can we get with state regulators or TDOT and have the navigation points changed so Buckner Road is off that list? It'll either divert from 65 to 840 to 31 or accommodate that in some way, or at least have that conversation if this passes this evening.
Yeah, that's kind of why we want to bring this list to you guys. Pam and I had met with TDOT a few weeks ago, discuss this ordinance and stuff. They said they need to see this get passed so that they could work with us with some of the Garmins and different GPSs to do that. So once this is approved, then we'll move forward with it.
Any further discussion on the amendment? So what we have before us, we are voting on an amendment brought by Alderman Cox. Alderman Gavigan.
Thanks, Mayor. Just one final thought about the idea of diverting what would be Buckner traffic to Highway 31. It's been my perspective that Highway 31 is the busiest street in Spring Hill, and continuing to force traffic on that road, not just from a safety and travel distance standpoint, but just from a traffic congestion standpoint as well is another reason why I would vote no on this amendment.
Thank you. We are voting on the amendment. Any further discussion? We can vote electronically. The amendment, please vote. Can we go audible?
See if that works for you. If not, we'll. Seven to two.
All right, so we voted on the amendment to the final reading of ordinance 2406 on the amendment. So now for the ordinance itself, as amended. Is there any discussion for the reading or the final passage of ordinance 2406? Any discussion? Please vote.
Okay,
I'm out.
Listen to, now you're out.
I'm out. Okay, wait, I just came back up. Let me see. I'm in.
Passes 8 to 1.
So, thank you. For the record, the second and final reading of ordinance 2406 as amended carries 8 to 1. Moving on, new business, there are 13 items. Item 1 of 13 reads, consider resolution 24-84 to approve policies for preparing agendas and packets for the City of Spring Hill Board of Mayor and Alderman meetings.
Mayor, I move that we approve resolution 24-84.
Motion to approve 2484 by Vice Mayor Pomeroy,
Second.
second by Alderman Murray. Any discussion on this item, Board? Alderman Fitter?
Just a quick question for staff, and if you don't have it readily available, you just get it to me after the fact. But is there a section within TCA where I could go to know how emergencies are defined?
Yes, there is, and
If you don't know it offhand, you
it's very loose, having to do with health, safety, and welfare.
so the examples that I gave last time, like a pump going out over the weekend, is okay. All right, thank you.
Alderman Canapari?
Thanks, Mayor. While I appreciate the effort that staff put in on this, if you read very carefully, there's really no change from the current situation. So that we can still get our agendas.
Any further discussion on this item? Please vote. I'm out.
I keep losing service.
I'm coming up. I'm coming up. I'm in. Alderman Canapari? Voice vote, how do you go, sir? We're on resolution 2484, item 1. Resolution 2484 carries 9-0. Thank you, Board. Item 2 of 13 reads, consider Resolution 24-102 to approve a memorandum of understanding with Williamson County Emergency Communications District.
Mayor, I move that we approve Resolution 24-102.
Motion to approve Resolution 24-102 by Vice Mayor Pomeroy,
Second.
second by Alderman Murray. Any discussion on this item? Please vote. I'm out. Oh, enter my key again. All right. We're going to go a manual roll call until we get this back up. So we are considering Resolution 24-102 by roll call. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Alderman Cox? Carries unanimously 9-0. Item number 3 of 13, consider Resolution 24-107 to accept the Williamson County Growth Plan as recommended by the Williamson County Growth Plan Coordinating Committee, as well as the proposed interlocal agreement.
Mayor, I move that we approve Resolution 24-107.
Motion to approve 24-107 by Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
Second.
Second by Alderman Linville. Is there any discussion on this? Alderman Linville.
Thanks. I feel like I earned that second on that one. Just as a reminder for this board, we voted to send the previous map that we sent back to the Williamson County Coordinating Committee, plus one parcel that was east of 431. Had a robust discussion at the meeting, to say the least. Feel free to go watch the video if you're interested in learning more details. But just to let you guys know, the committee sent back a map that removed one parcel, the one parcel that we added east of 431, but retained the rest of everything east of I-65. So obviously I think that this is a good development for Spring Hill. You know, the economic development opportunities that are east of 65 are important for the city, and I would strongly urge that we we're going first to approve it with before all of the municipalities, and I strongly suggest that we vote to approve today.
Alderman Fitter.
Thank you, Mayor. I have to disagree with one thing Alderman Linville said. It wasn't a robust discussion as much as it was with Alderman Linville just holding court and taking care of things. He did a fantastic job representing the city's interest, and I just wanted to publicly thank him for that.
Alderman Fuqua.
Thank you. I'm actually going to echo Alderman Fitter's comments. Alderman Linville, I thought that you did a fantastic job. Thank you for representing the city in the way that you did. I was paying attention and thought that you did a fantastic job, and the public needs to know that. I would also like to extend a thank you to our city attorney. I thought that he did very well in handling our education on the process and the attorney duties. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Fairview will be looking at this in 2 weeks. They were actually scheduled to do it this past week, but they didn't have the update yet. So they're doing it in 2 weeks. Franklin is doing it on the 28th, I believe. Nolensville should be the first or second week in June. Not sure when Brentwood is doing it, but they will be fairly quick about it too. So, but if we approve it tonight, we'll be the first ones. I think that speaks loudly, and I think that's important for the other boards in the other cities.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Can we vote electronically?
Try to vote electronically.
Okay, please vote. Yay. Resolution 24-107 carries 9-0. Thank you, Board. Item number 4 of 13 reads, consider the first reading of ordinance 2407 to approve an increase in the water rates.
Mayor, I move that we approve the first reading of ordinance 24-07.
Motion to approve ordinance 2407, first reading by Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
Second.
Second by Alderman Murray. Discussion is open. Alderman Canapari.
Thank you, Mayor. For this ordinance and the next two after it, 2409 and 2410, I think that we owe the public a little bit of explanation as to the rates from staff, so that we just don't pass this and kind of hide it from public in the sense of having visibility. I think we really need to have somebody explain, if you're following on the video, you'll get an explanation of how the rates are going to be affected.
Thank you, Alderman Carpentier. I think that's an excellent recommendation. I would ask Dan Allen, who's been the assistant responsible for this, to come and talk only on the one that's on the floor, not to conflate them all together. So this is about the water rates. You'll get another moment on the sewer. And
Okay, so, sorry, I got distracted for a second.
yeah,
So,
I was looking around going, where is he?
And as Alderman Canapari, you said 7, 9. There's a 7, 8, 9, and 10. So there are 4 total. Mr. Allen, 2407. It's up to you, sir.
yes, thank you. So, like it's been mentioned, we have 4 ordinances for us tonight. This first one under discussion is for the water rates. This is based on a process we've been going through for about a year now. We've worked with a consultant named Draft Ellis that's helped us analyze it for the water and sewer side of the house. And we've been looking at all the things that we need to do to expand our capital side of the house, expand infrastructure, as well as continue operations and grow and scale with the things that we have in front of us. The financial model came back, and our final recommendations were on the water side, a 25% increase in year 1, a 30% increase in year 2, and a 30% increase in year 3. And that's reflected in the structure of the ordinance in those sections and the effective dates. So they go effective every July 1. After the 3rd year, it defaults back to basically a inflationary index provision, which would be, it will either increase by 3% or the consumer price index at the time, whichever is greater at the moment. So that preserves some of your buying power in the future and prevents hopefully future very large rate adjustments, kind of like what we're considering now. The other thing that you'll notice in this particular one in the water rates is that we are recommending a slight restructuring on the residential side and adding in some essentially some tiers. And so the tiers are meant to align our rate and financial structure with our water conservation goals and our water usage within the city. So if you are a resident and you use typically 0 to 4,000 gallons a month, that's more than half of the usage that happens in the city. Most people fall into that. If you're one of those folks and that's your usage, then all you're going to experience is the recommended rate increase. If you fall into tier 2, which is 4,000 up to, oh shit, I forgot the number off the top of my head. 9, yeah. If you fall into that tier, you're doing more, based on our analysis, you're doing more than just traditional domestic use. You're doing some non-essential use as well. You might be filling a pool, you might be doing some irrigation, but you're doing some extra stuff above and beyond just the normal domestic type operations. And so because of that and the extra usage that comes with that, tier 2 comes with a little bit higher price tag that bumps it up. And then we have a smaller classification that's not a very big group of people, but they use a significant amount of water, and those are in the 10,000 gallons a month plus category. And those folks will experience increases plus essentially a premium tier tacked onto it to help encourage a little bit less use. And quite frankly, those users are creating situations where we're having to invest more in water tanks and have more infrastructure to take care of peak times. And so they have the option to keep using at those rates, and if they do that, we have a price for that. If they curtail some of that usage and start conserving, that aligns with our water quality and water usage goals that ultimately go along with things we've agreed to with the Duck River Agency and their efforts over the last several years. And so either way, the city's in position to win. If somebody's going to use that much water, we're collecting a proportionately effective share to help offset the infrastructure we have to invest in. And if they reduce it down, then that means that's less tanks that we have to build. So that's some of the philosophy and thought process behind it. You'll see that structure clearly laid out in the tables on a volumetric basis. We've also had our staff review it with Tyler Technologies, and assuming that the board passes these efforts, we're ready to implement it, and it should be fairly straightforward. With that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Any further discussion, board? Please vote. Alderman Fitter.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Allen, for putting this together. I know you included for us a comparison of other peer cities as well. I just want to call to everybody's attention. Thompson Station did a similar exercise, as they've got some significant sewer needs of their own that they included in their budget presentation. They use City of Franklin, Fairview, Lewisburg themselves, Nolensville, Nashville, and then Spring Hill. Spring Hill is way off on the left-hand side of their column, even at our increased rate, with all those other cities I mentioned, average bills being greater than $100 a month. So both in the data you found and that other municipalities found, even with this rate increase, we are still an extremely affordable utility, and I think that's worth mentioning.
Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
Thanks, Mayor. Just want to say also appreciate it, Mr. Allen, and just so the public's aware, about at least a year or so, we've been pouring over all your reports. There's been a lot of work that's going into this through third parties. This isn't a haphazard rate increase. This is a lot of brains and a lot of sweat that went into it. So this isn't just, we're just not throwing numbers out there. There's a lot of calculations that went in there, and anybody who doubts me, you can just look at the packet tonight, and you don't have to be an accountant to figure out. It required a lot of work to do, and I pay attention to it all. I'm going to vote for it tonight. I'm going to support it. I appreciate all the work you did for it. Thanks.
Before we vote, a general announcement. So I'm being told by our IT guys that there's we have a shortage of Wi-Fi going on right now. So if anybody on the dais or in the audience, if I could ask you to, if you're not using your devices for this specific meeting, please get off Wi-Fi so we can. That's why we're having electronic issues. Please vote. First reading of ordinance 2407 carries 9-0. Thank you. Item 5 of 13 reads, consider first reading of ordinance 24-08 to approve an increase in the sewer rates.
Mayor, move that we approve the first reading of ordinance 24-08.
Motion to approve ordinance 2408 by Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
Second.
Second by Alderman Murray. Any discussion on this item? Mr. Allen?
Sewers a little bit more straightforward. We're not proposing any tiering structures or anything like that. It's just a straight analysis based on the previous mathematical structure that we already had in place. And then the revenue requirements were adjusted back. And so you come back to this ordinance with the same structure. Each section shows each year's of increases and a simpler table, but the same approach. Year 1, again, 25%. Year 2, 30%. Year 3, 30%. And then year 4, we have that exact same inflationary indexing clause placed in there again with all the same effective dates.
Thank you. Any discussion further? I am out. Ms. Watson to vote. Oh, here we go. Please vote. Thank you. First reading of ordinance 2408 carries 9-0. Thank you, board. Item number 6 of 13 reads Item number 7 of 13 reads consider first reading of ordinance 24-10 to approve an increase in. No, I did miss. Yep, I got it. Bottom of the page. 2408. All right. Sorry about that. Item 6 of 13 reads consider first reading of ordinance 24-09 to approve an increase in the water development charge.
Mayor, move that we approve the first reading of ordinance 24-09.
Motion to approve ordinance 2409 by Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
Second.
Second by Alderman Murray. Any discussion on this? Mr. Allen?
Thank you, Mayor. On both this one and the next one, we're shifting to the development fee increases is really what the next two ordinances are about. On the water side, what we have is a methodology that we adopted back with the increase that we did in 2019. And so we've included a couple times now some of those old ordinances. I think it's like 1930 through 1933 for your guys' reference. Basically, when we did that, everything comes down to we're estimating capital, we're looking at our future needs, we're estimating those costs, and then we need to apportion them back essentially over some level of growth projection. And so there's a lot of math and statistics that goes into that, but ultimately the end goal is that we set a cost per equivalent residential unit. So in other words, the cost of basically serving one house becomes the statistical basis for everything else that we do. And in that methodology, if you look closely in the tables that are in there, it shows the multipliers. So based on a meter size, there's a certain multiplier that you take times the equivalent residential unit, and that's how you arrive at those fees. And so we've kept that entire structure. That's worked well for us. All the multipliers are the same, all the structure, all the meters, everything is the same, so it makes it very easy to implement. All we have changed is we've updated the equivalent residential unit. So that goes up, and then the table pretty much is just basic math. You take that new increased ERU and you multiply it out. Same structure, each section has each year's worth of increases. If I remember correctly, year 1 on water is 25, year 2 is 30, year 3 based on current capital needs was slightly lower. I think it was around 11% if I remember my math right. And the difference, you might be thinking, well, hey, why is that different from just the straight rate structure versus the development fees? Remember, we have to be very cautious and very deliberate about how we set these development fees. It has to be fair, it has to be equitable, it has to meet what's called a rational nexus requirement, so it has to be proportionate. I can't charge somebody down off of, say, Claiborne or Beechcroft a 100x multiplier on their ERU and then use that money to invest in the impacts of a development, say, up around the June Lake area. So you have to be very careful and you have to be balanced and equitable across the board. And so factoring all those things in, we did the exact same methodology we did before, and the tables that you have before you in each section reflect that.
Any further discussion? Please vote. First reading of ordinance 2409 carries 9-0. Thank you, board. Item number 7 of 13 reads, consider first reading of ordinance 24-10 to approve an increase in the sewer development charge.
Mayor, move that we approve the first reading of ordinance 24-10.
Motion to approve ordinance 2410 by Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
Second.
Second by Alderman Murray. Mr. Allen.
Very similar to the ordinance you just approved. Same methodology, same structure, just this has to deal with the sewer side instead of the water side. And so that's why you have a little bit of a difference in the overall ERU number. When we apportion out the projects, we had to pick whether it's going towards water and sewer, and pretty much a similar rate increase structure by section as well.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Please vote. First reading ordinance 2410 carries 9-0. Thank you, board. Thank you, Mr. Allen.
Thank you.
Item number 8 of 13 reads, consider resolution 24-109 to receive a 20-foot water line easement from property located across the Tom Lund development property.
Mayor, move that we approve resolution 24-109.
Motion to approve 24-109 by Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
Second.
Second by Alderman Murray. Discussion. Alderman Fuqua.
Thank you. I will be abstaining from this vote as I have a business relationship with one of the property owners.
Thank you. Alderman Linville.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess this question would be directed to staff. What we have in our packet is an unsigned agreement between the HOA and the developer purporting to give them an interest in the easement to be able to dedicate it. Do we know if they actually have the easement that we're purporting to accept in this resolution?
Oh, I was like, I don't even know who to ask, but there he is.
Just when you least expected it. No, we do have the easement. We have the paperwork to record. They did not want to sign that for recordation until we accepted the easement.
So they have not signed the agreement?
They have signed it, but it has not been recorded.
Okay.
They can't record it till we accept it.
Sure. Is there any way we can see a copy of that agreement showing that
I don't
we're
have it with me, but
accepting an easement that?
I don't
the
think it's a
authority to
rush.
accept?
I think we can put it off if you want to do that so we can get you a copy of it.
Okay.
I don't have any problem with that.
I just am uncomfortable
No,
accepting easement.
no.
We don't have proof that the developer has the right to give us. So
Right.
I'll make a motion to defer this to our next meeting.
Alderman Linville makes a motion to defer this item. Is there a second?
I'll second it. And the deferment dates to June 3rd,
Yes.
2024. Okay. To June 3rd, 2024. I'll second the deferment.
We have a motion to defer by Alderman Linville, seconded by Vice Mayor Pomeroy. Any discussion on the deferment? Ms. Caskey?
Have we traditionally given you that background paperwork before we've done these? These are relatively routine. That's why I'm curious.
I think it's typically in the packet.
It is typically in the packet. Okay.
Proposed utility easements.
Okay.
We've seen some sort of basis for which the developer has the right to grant that easement to us.
That's fine. I just wasn't aware either way, so thank you.
Any further discussion on the deferment? All those in favor to defer, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We have, this is deferred and one abstain. So we have 8 for deferment and 1 abstain. That item is deferred. Item number 9 of 13 reads, consider resolution 24-110 to approve a joint development agreement between GV Spring Hill LLC and the City of Spring Hill for flood study review services.
Mayor, I move that we approve resolution 24-110.
Motion to approve 24-110 by Vice Mayor Pomeroy. Second by Alderman Murray. Any discussion on this item? Please vote. Resolution 24-110 carries 9-0. Thank you, Board. Item 10 of 13 reads, consider resolution 24-111 to approve a joint development agreement between Spring Hill Development Holdings, LLC, and the City of Spring Hill for flood study review services.
Mayor, I move that we approve resolution 24-111.
Motion to approve resolution 24-111 by Vice Mayor Pomeroy. Second by Alderman Murray. Any discussion on this item? Please vote. Resolution 24-111 carries 9-0. Thank you, Board. Item number 11 of 13 reads, consider resolution 24-113 to authorize the mayor to sign a fee proposal with the Cordino Group to design services for an alternative layout of Kedron Road and Old Kedron Road.
Mayor, I move that we approve resolution 24-113.
Motion to approve resolution 24-113 by Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
Second.
Second by Alderman Murray. Any discussion on this item? Please vote. Resolution 24-113 carries 9-0. Thank you, Board. Item 12 of 13 reads, consider resolution 24-114 to approve a professional services agreement with Lost Design for master planning services for community services complex site.
Mayor, I move that we approve resolution 24-114.
Motion to approve resolution 24-114 by Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
Second.
Second by Alderman Murray. Any discussion on this item? Please vote.
Mayor.
Alderman Fitter.
Thank you. I don't know if this may be a question for you then. The two options identified, the single building or
Main Street approach.
the Main Street approach. I mean, I thought we had
Pretty much identified the main.
clarity on that at the
Yeah.
retreat. What's maybe changed, or why is that still in there?
The staff is, not the staff, the engineers that the LOS and folks have been talking about, can we build that with everything that we need in the space that we have? We believe we can, but we also only want to build it once. So the question is, can we get everything placed where we need to be, build it once, and do the Main Street design. The reason that we can drop one is once they figure out what is going to go over there permanently from the beginning, like Fleet, for instance, like the storage barns, for instance, then they should be able to determine whether we need to do one or the other. But option one is to go with the Main Street design.
I thought the discussion at the retreat was the board was pretty clear we did not want the Main Street design.
The Main Street, no, I thought we did want the Main Street approach. You did not want to invite public into it, but you wanted the ability to expand as you built out, as opposed to building one building that would handle all the capacity we can see for the future. That's what I took away from the meeting, and I think that's what everybody else heard, unless somebody is telling me I'm wrong.
The Main Street concept, as it was talked about at the retreat, was talked about as a public gathering space.
No, it was talked about as the ability to build incrementally down the street as we need to, as opposed to doing what we're doing with the police department, which was building 55,000 square feet before we needed it.
I suppose one of us is remembering the terminology that was used in January wrong, but the phased approach in, I think was.
Don't do a public gathering space. That is clearly what we understood.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's been clearly communicated to Los. But the question is, do we build one very large building, or do we build something that we can add on to incrementally? If we need to put that on the agenda for another discussion to get clarity around that, I'd rather do that. I'd rather get these guys started now because we need to move, but schedule that for the next meeting.
Yeah, no, I'd like to get them started as well. Maybe I just don't like the term Main Street being used for this.
I think it's like a Public Works Main Street.
There we go. I don't care what we call it.
Because I when I was in the packet, I thought the same thing you thought, and then I tore through it more, and I was like, oh, it's a Public Works Main Street that makes it look kind of nice and not,
Yeah, it's incrementally building buildings instead of building all of them, and it's building down two sides of a street with other stuff in the back. So it's more the look and feel of a main street, not actually functioning as a main street.
This is not Highway 31.
Right.
It is
but
the
it's
hood
giving-
property.
It would be
It's
giving
the hood property.
Yeah, it would be giving individual doors to different functionalities, as opposed to you walk in to one door and then you spread through the building to find what you need. So those are the two kind of primary concepts. I have an idea. Let's get these guys started, and then let's give us an opportunity to maybe bring you two very rough sketch plans and let you go from there. How does that sound?
Any
Alderman
further?
Okay. I'll figure out a different word for it. I can't come up. I like that.
I like it. Any further discussion on this item? Please vote. Resolution 24-114 carries 9-0. Thank you, Board. Item 13 of 13 reads, consider Resolution 24-117 to approve the carryover of outstanding purchase orders as well as certain unused budgets for fiscal year 24-24 to fiscal year 2025.
Mayor, move that we approve Resolution 24-117.
Motion to approve 24-117 by Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
Second.
Second by Alderman Murray. Any discussion on this item? Please vote. Resolution 24-117 carries 9-0. Thank you, Board. Thus ends the voting portion and electronic portion. So you can get back on your devices, everyone. Miss Watson, that was pretty hairy. You did amazing. Thank you. So moving on, segueing into the work session discussion portion, there are 4 items on this section, and item 1 of 4 reads, is to update the design for Port Royal Road in the Keaton Road intersection.
Hey, guys.
That one's not working.
Alderman Fuqua.
I would like to defer this until the next meeting on June 3rd, if we could. I think some clarifications need to occur between Ms. Caskey and myself after some significant discussion during TAC before bringing it to the board.
I think that's a great idea. Would you bring it on the TAC again as well?
I will leave that to the chairman.
Alderman Cox?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah. So during our TAC, this was our first item of our agenda that took about 45 of our 60 minutes. And three of the concepts that were presented, one was an original, then three more came to us. We were asked to come to a decision on which one we would like. We had a lot of back and forth, but ultimately came away with we would like some more feedback from the impacted parties on all of the options, or at least maybe the top three, and that would come back to TAC so that we could properly review them and have a little bit more time.
Is that a second to defer?
Yes, please.
Mayor, if I might, Dwayne, can you tell me where in the planning process the two developments we have down in that area are? I'm not talking about the one out of county. Tyler, do you have any?
I'm not sure which. Right, but I don't remember the names of them.
Keaton Mills.
Keaton Mills. Tell her.
Tell her.
Yeah, tell them.
Where are we in the planning process to know how, do we have a month to defer to another TAC, or do we only have 2 weeks and we need to get a decision made so that we can move forward with the plan? I don't want to let somebody go ahead and connect in a way that's going to limit our options. That's my concern.
Keaton Mills has only come through as a concept, so I think we're fine.
So then I would recommend that instead of deferring till June 3rd, we defer to the second meeting in June.
I'm completely okay with that. I think the more time to digest everything, the better.
Does the second hold?
Yes.
So we are, so on the dais, we are asking for deferment till the second meeting in June. Everybody okay with that? Anybody not want to defer it? It's a discussion item. We don't have to vote. All right, we are deferring that till the second meeting in June, and TAC is going to take that up again on their June meeting, which is the first Monday in June. Or the second Monday, sorry. Okay, item number 2 of 4 is for cost recovery policy. Ms. Caskey.
Yes, you had in your packet, and I apologize that it was a little late getting out to you, a recommendation for a cost recovery policy that we will use in setting rates when they come back to you in the budget. We'll be doing adoption in the second meeting in June, so June 17th, I believe. And we will try to set appropriate cost recoveries. It is not without being spoken, it is within the confines of the foundation of what an enterprise fund is, that those must basically cover their cost and their depreciation by the fees and revenues generated. So that would be water and sewer, stormwater, sanitation, and then all of the new internal service funds, or internal service fund and all the divisions that are within that. So those don't need to be covered by policy. The issue is, what do we do with the other stuff that we need to cover? Staff's recommendation is planning services are covered at 80%, engineering services at 50, inspection services at 100 plus, because that helps cover up, carry forward some of the revenues that are not picked up by engineering. Infrastructure demands from development will be based on location. Youth recreation, we would subsidize at 100%. Adult recreation, we would not subsidize at all. Senior recreation, we would aim for a 50% breakout. And then allocated administrative services, public safety or community services, like if we do fire watch for the fire with the fire department, we're going to cover their salary and a piece of equipment that's tied up, if there is such, for the entire time that it's on fire watch. Or if we are doing something on a traffic situation for the police department needed for traffic control, 100% of the cost would be recovered for the officers that are sitting there. If we're doing a fee like credit card fees, we would be charging what it's costing us for that fee recovery. So if this is okay with you, we're going to put that into policy and bring it back to you. If that is not okay and you have problems with any of them, this would be a great time to discuss it. If you need more information, great time to ask for that. Finances of BFAC has seen this a couple of times. They've recommended that we bring it to you. This was the first time we had a moment to talk about it.
Alderman Fuqua.
Thank you. Looking at what was sent over, the only thing that I disagree with would be item G, senior recreation programs. At the 50%, mainly, I mean, we're probably not talking about a ton in that. However, I do know quite a few seniors in the Spring Hill area, and they're kind of budgetary confines. So, I mean, I consider that to be the same as youth personally. I'll let some of my colleagues comment on that.
Alderman Fitter.
Thank you, Mayor. First, just a point of clarity. BFAC has talked about this conceptually a couple of times, and we have not seen percentages. I saw these percentages, Alderman Linville saw these percentages for the first time today. We kind of identified the percentages as something that needs to be a BOMA policy decision and not a BFAC item of review. Ms. Caskey, there's a couple in here that feel wrong to me, and I don't know if that's just because I have not enough information or what you're basing it off of, but just to go alphabetically, planning services, 80% feels a bit high to me. We just heard earlier tonight the value of long-range planners. You know, we've had the discussion about the UGB ad nauseum about the need to long-range plan over there. I believe we're going to talk about having some concept plans for the major arterial and collector roads over there. Those are things the city needs to do, whether new development's occurring or not. And thinking of all that and thinking of what goes into it, I don't know that 20% as being the city responsibility is really a fair allocation.
Do you have a number that feels more right?
60? I mean, I'm not sure, right? We've had these for 12 hours, so 80% feels high though, especially knowing what has to go in on the west side, knowing what we need from a long-term perspective, and you know, if we're going to get out of this pattern that we've been in for 10 years of, you know, reacting to what's on this month's planning commission, that needs to be an investment from the city that's greater than 20%. Likewise, engineering services feels low to me. I mean, I looked at these immediately and said, why are planning and engineering not the same number? Now, I don't know if you're incorporating into that, you know, when we go use third-party engineers, the Thomas and Huttons to do stormwater or stuff like that as a non-reimbursed cost, but
That's just development reviews.
so if this is just strictly speaking development reviews, I don't know why planning and engineering wouldn't be the same.
just as a point of, maybe to answer that question, I'm not going to disagree with you that planning is a little high, but given that we have zero long-term planning in-house right now, it seems a little low what we're doing right now, but aspirationally, we should be shooting for something less than 80%. I concur. However, a lot of the transportation planning we're doing is taking place outside of the planning department. So that's something to consider, and we're not putting that into this equation. The current structure of engineering reimbursements, they made 10% of their costs last year. 10%.
Yeah, that's too low.
So when I set it at 50, I was thinking, what do we have to do? What do we have to do to fees to get it there? And so I was figuring I was jumping pretty high to get to 50.
So maybe the right approach for things like that, where there's such a large gap between where we are and where we need to be. If we get here over a period of 2 fiscal years, maybe that's a more appropriate approach.
Yeah.
The other one I really had a question on, the infrastructure demands from development varied based off location. What's that mean? Why would we vary it?
I'm struggling with this one because we're ending up, we've got to fix this, and I'm not sure I have a really good fix right now, given the way development works and our inability to predict cost. This is a lot easier when costs were a lot more stagnant or predictable. But for instance, the developer wants to know what their costs are going to be for infrastructure when we tell them what they have to do. And yet, when we give them 80% build out before they have to fund anything, and we wait for their funding before we do it, we're now paying cost at, an 80% markup.
Can you give me an example of what we're talking about? I mean,
Sure.
we're talking roadway stuff, utility stuff?
Yeah,
What are we
mostly roadway stuff where there's cooperative purchases. So let's take Beechcroft, that's the best example. Missy, what's our cost? What was the original cost calculations on the stop sign, or the traffic signal at Beechcroft? Original. What is it now? And what is the cost of the overall roadway improvement that we're going to do in a year, start in a year and a half after we get the road plan? Tyler, any idea? 2.5 to 3 million? Okay, so I'm not quite sure how we do that. I guess I need you guys to know that we're struggling with not putting cost on the city because of the timing process. And so probably should have left it off of here, but I'm so frustrated by it, I wanted to have some conversation about it. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk about it. Because, I mean, we got a developer capped at $50,000, which was the deal that the Planning Commission made at the time. They didn't have to pay it until a certain amount of time now. And even though there's all sorts of more money pouring into that intersection now, there's still $25,000, $30,000 that we're going to have to pick up on just that developer. Is that correct? It's around 80, right? Wait, so we capped it at 40 or at 50. Their share is going to be 94 at our current cost, and we're still 18 months away from doing the project at this point. I'm struggling with that. I need to find a solution. That probably should be taken off here, but thank you for letting me talk about it because I think it's significant.
I'm not opposed to having something on here, but I think we need to get a little bit more nuanced with what we mean by infrastructure, because obviously we don't mean our enterprise infrastructure, right?
Yeah, it's basically right.
And then, just thinking about it from a defendability standpoint, as soon as any applicant hears, well, it varies, Mr. Carter's favorite words of arbitrary and capricious in the conversation.
I hate those words.
Those were the three that really stuck out to me as not ready to endorse. How about that?
So would you be comfortable with a 2-year approach that we get planning at 60 and engineering for the moment at 60 and work to try to get there in steps to 2 years?
Probably. I mean, I'd like to hear what everybody else has to say, but probably.
Alderman Fitter, you felt when you started the conversation, you said 80%. You have a suggested lower percent.
I threw 60 out.
Yeah. He threw
Okay.
60.
Thank you, Alderman.
And I don't know that it's right. 80 feels very high.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Alderman
It's
Linville.
better than 33, which is where we're at tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. A lot of what I was going to say has been picked up by Alderman Fuquay and Fitter. Just wanted to note, I do agree with Alderman Fuquay on senior services. I think I would like to see that similar to how we're treating the youth recreation programs for a number of reasons, not least of which is, a lot of people who take advantage of those programs tend to be on fixed incomes, and I think those are worth subsidizing. Also agree on planning being high. The way that I kind of looked at it is, based on this calculation, we're spending 4 hours in current planning for every 1 hour we spend in long-range planning, and I would like it to be more than that. I know that we have work to get to that point, but if we're setting policy, it's setting what we want to happen. So I won't reiterate all the points that Alderman Fitter made, but I agree there. And then for the infrastructure demands, I had a question about what that meant as well. I understand the difficulties of figuring out how to implement it, but I think from a policy decision, just fundamentally, infrastructure development should carry 100% of the impact that it makes, to infrastructure. And so whatever implementation we need to work backwards from that would be my 2 cents.
Alderman Fuquay. Alderman Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to echo what Alderman Fuquay had said and agree with the senior recognition program for the reasons it's already been shared. I won't revisit, but I do think that's something. It's a great program that people love, the various different activities, and I think they are on a fixed income, and we should consider that. I'm game for what everybody wants to talk about from the infrastructure standpoint, but just wanted to make sure I noted that on the seniors.
Alderman Fuquay.
Actually, I had a question for Alderman Linville. Is there a percentage on the top two that you were feeling?
This would be a shot in the dark for me, like 70% was the first thing that I thought of. But again, that's an estimate based on seeing this very recently.
Sure. The reason that I ask is because as soon as Alderman Fitter started making some of those points, I agree with they should, planning and engineering should be identical. That feels right to me. I would rather kind of meet in the middle with go from 80 to a 60 or 70 on both from my perspective. And then over the next couple of weeks, I can assure you, as this kind of gets out to the development community, we'll hear what they feel is fair, and then we can then kind of reverse performa what would be our actual. So that may be something staff-led with the feedback of the calls that we get, but I'll share those as they come in.
So, Mayor, here's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing, so first of all, currently planning is collecting about 33% of cost. Engineering is collecting just like a hair over 10% of cost. There's lots of reasons for that, and we'll discuss those all when we lay it out to you. But I would propose to alter both of those to 60%, saying in the policy that these percentages are aspirational to be achieved over a couple of iterations and reevaluated in a 2-year time frame. And then I would propose to move the infrastructure's demands from development to 100% with the same concept that it's aspirational and we may not get there until we figure out exactly how to get ahead of that game. And then moving senior recreation programs from 50% to 100%. And if we put that forward in a policy document for the next meeting, assuming the language is supported by that opinion, is that something you could all get behind for the current time period? Meanwhile, we'll use these to work on new fee structures that start to accommodate this. I promise you we're not getting there in year one, or your friends won't be able to talk to you without saying nasty language. So we'll try to figure out a way to get there over a couple of 3 years.
Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
So the senior recreation program should be 0. Is that what we were saying, right?
Oh, sorry. I
You
said
had it
100.
backward.
You're
You said
right.
100%
100% subsidized.
zero.
My mistake. Yep, my mistake.
Okay.
And I typed 100% here, so I'm glad you caught me on that.
And Ms. Cassidy, allocated public safety and community services, 100%. Do you have some examples of that, what that looks like?
Yeah, like we send a cop out to work for TDOT on a roadway project. Are we charging them the whole cost? Are we charging them the cost of the overtime and the benefits for the officer and, the cost of having a cruiser idling sitting there? Or are we just recouping their hourly rate or agreeing to some hourly rate that doesn't even begin to cover our cost? That's the most obvious question. And there's other examples. We have a program called Firewatch, and we try to avoid doing it whenever possible, but if we have to, the developer or the owner or whatever has to pay one of our firemen to sit there for 24 hours until they can get their fire alarm systems working. And I don't want to subsidize that guy sitting there. I want that guy to pay 100% of the cost of having to have that guy sitting there. Maybe he'll pay his alarm bill instead.
Okay. I thought maybe when I see public safety, community services, are there events, even if they're private events, large events that any of our officers are covering down on as well?
And without question, one of the ways we do this, and I've done this in other communities, we give the Parks and Rec Committee an allocation of dollars that they can use to subsidize events that they want to subsidize. And in those cases, we can write down, but it's that committee's decision as to what to support. So if there's some festival going on, we don't charge ourselves, obviously, but if there's some Chamber of Commerce festival going on and the Parks and Rec Committee wants to subsidize the cost of having security out there, they have that right to contribute.
So is where we're at. You're going to tweak it some and present for discussion next meeting.
And I've got clear direction. Thank you.
Okay. Item 3, discussion of the cell tower. No name attached to it.
I believe this came from one of you guys asking it to be on here, where we had a woman request that we consider passing legislation that would require a set distance between a cell tower and any school. We did verify that the state has adopted such a legislation that gives us the right to do it, and it is not in violation of any of the most recent telecommunications acts. If we remember, we had a lady here asking for us to consider that. We do not have it, and it cannot affect that one, but you do have the right to request that to be added to the UDC, and it was requested that it get discussed.
I support it totally. The distance that it would, I think what was it?
1,500 feet.
Was it 1,500 feet? I thought it was 500 feet. Was it?
I don't know.
Whatever I recall, I don't know the exact details of the email, but I recall there were several citizens that wrote in and they said, hey, Franklin is doing it, other communities are doing it. Would you guys like to do it as well? So I read it and it sounds great to me. I don't want, there's a lot of studies that have been, there's several studies that have been done with regards to the radio waves that are coming out, that are emanating from a cell phone tower may not proven, but may harm children especially. And if there's a way that we can mitigate that to happen, that's an easy one for me. I support a distance from cell phone towers being erected by schools.
Dwayne, do you remember what the distance was?
The Williamson County ordinance that was adopted 3 months ago was 1/4 mile. It's 1,096 feet from any school K through 12.
I love it. That's what I would replicate then to put in our ordinance. Is that an ordinance thing or a resolution? Because we have to change the UDC.
It'll actually be a change to the UDC.
Yeah.
We are currently in UDC amendments now, so this one would get added to the bulk amendments that are coming in.
Vice Mayor Pomeroy.
Is the Murray County, has County Commission adopted something similar?
Not to my knowledge.
Nothing. School board's weighing in on it.
The school board really doesn't have regulatory authority. They have the choice to lease their land to a cell tower or not, which is how the last one came before us. They chose to do that. They would choose not to have it, but they would not have the regulatory authority to have a say because we're the land regulatory authority.
I'd be okay just mirroring it off the one past Williamson County. That's fine with me.
Alderman Linville.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to say the same thing. I would look to Williamson's ordinance that they just passed and mirror that provision, assuming that we're confident it doesn't run afoul of federal law, which I think there are questions about.
We actually did check that because that was my first. It's like we can't do this, and then I found we actually could. Actually, the state law gave us the right to do it, and I don't think anybody's challenged the state law.
I don't know if the state has the authority to allow us to violate federal law. But
well, go ahead.
But I feel comfortable walking in step with Williamson is what they're doing.
Well, and just remember, you're walking in step with the state, too. So.
Thank you. So just for clarification purposes and in terms of giving staff direction, I would just have a couple of clarifying questions. So we have cell towers on private property. We have cell towers in the right-of-way, but then we also have co-location of antennas that are separate from a tower. So, for example, we could have antennas on top of streetlights or utility poles. So I just, in terms of clarification to staff on what types of facilities we're looking at separating from schools, give us that direction on, are we talking about transmission towers themselves, whether they're the lattice towers, the fake trees, the flag poles? Are we concerned with co-locating individual antennas?
I don't think there's anything we can do as far as small cell.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I think what we're talking about is the large cell towers.
Got it.
I think the law is clear on the small cells. We can't do anything. So I think it's only the larger towers.
Okay. And we're talking private property and public property.
Correct.
Great.
A 1/4 mile, as Mr. Hicks, thank you, pointed out, I support a 1/4 mile K through 12 schools.
Okay. Thank
Like
you.
Wilco did. Thank you, Wilco, if you're watching this. I would have liked to have been the person to do, the board to do this, but we'll ride your bus, Wilco. Thank you. Well, I can speak for myself, board. Alderman Fuquay.
Thank you. Mr. Hicks, did I hear you correctly? It was 1,096 feet that they passed?
It's 1320 is.
So that's what I was thinking.
it's
It's a 1/4 mile.
It's
So
1320.
1,320 feet. Okay, I wanted to make sure because if they passed 1,096, because I had lunch with one of the commissioners and we discussed this, and I asked them why they didn't go further.
Right.
If there was the concern, being discussed, and so I'm comfortable with a 1/4 mile.
Alderman Fitter.
Thank you, Mayor. Two questions. First, are we talking only K-12 public schools, or are we also talking preschools? We don't have one today, but a college campus, or What do we mean when we say schools?
What does
Well-
our zoning code say when it says school? Did they consider anything under age 5 to be a daycare and not a school? I have,
We would consider those to be daycare facilities, not sort of educational facilities.
Okay. So then second ask, Ms. Sanders, if whatever the distance is, 1320, whatever, can we get a map or an exhibit of some kind of where that is in the city? Because if we're saying no to those areas, we're also saying yes to all the other areas. And I don't want to rush into saying yes to all those areas when I don't know what they are yet.
Sure. We can prepare 2 exhibits, one with K through 12 and another with K through 12 plus daycare facilities.
Okay, and then we'll come up with an answer to the homeschool parents about why they're not a school, right?
That's what I was.
Or
gonna
private
ask.
schools,
I-
or
yeah.
I was going to ask the same thing for private school and homeschool.
I mean,
Well, you
if
gotta
my,
draw
if
the
my
line somewhere, so.
homeschool cohort meets at a church, is that now not a school? You know?
In our exercise in evaluating K through 12, I didn't intend to differentiate between private and public. If you would like for that data as well, we can certainly prepare it.
I don't know that I need it. I'm not trying to play gotcha with you, Ms. Sanders, but I just, if we're in a rush to say not here, we need to be aware of where we're saying yes to. And then we need to be prepared to answer the questions. Well, why didn't you consider us as an exclusionary zone?
Yeah. So I just want to make sure that we're giving you all of the information that you need to make an informed decision.
I would encourage that you reach out to Wilco, because I'm sure that their board members had the same discussion on wherever as they drew the line, how that came. That would be a good resource. Agreed?
Happy to do so.
Thank you, Ms. Sanders.
Thank you.
you will not see this until you see a package of UDC amendments, and it'll be a fairly long package. And in fact, I think we have a special, there's 5 meetings in July. There's 5 Mondays in July. So some of you have 5 meetings in July, because I think we're aiming towards that 5th meeting being a joint planning meeting with you guys on the, where the status is of all those amendments and getting all of that sort of information. And then there's another 5 meeting 2 months later, and that would be the discussion before the adoption process started. So that's the kind of the rollout on what will be a fairly hefty packet of amendments. Some of them came from Bob's initial conversation, some of them have been in state law changes over the years, and some of them have been things we've identified that needed to be changed. So it's going to be a pretty hefty packet of ordinance updates. So if you see a 5th Friday, do not plan your vacation then. There are plans for a meeting.
Okay, moving on. Item 404 is a discussion of State of Tennessee ARP competitive grant contract.
For the record, Dan Allen, Assistant City Administrator. The mayor, a couple weeks ago, received a communication from the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation asking him to electronically sign a contract for one of the competitive grants that we got. It was the one for infrastructure resilience associated with doing a feasibility study for the reservoir. A lot of time has passed since we applied for that last fall. You all just recently approved a memorandum of understanding with the developer on a project called Stone Creek to partner together and get something going. It is staff's recommendation that if you intend to continue forward with the partnership with the developer, the savings on that project are in the $4 to $5 million, and you will not be able to achieve the timelines that the developer wants to achieve if you take the extra strings from the grant requirement. So rather than passing a whole bunch of resolutions and all that, we just want to have a quick discussion. Staff is under the impression that based on the previous actions that have been taken, The intent is to partner with the developer, save several $1 million, and move forward. And if that is the case, we're recommending that we not have the mayor sign that contract for that grant and turn that money back to the state and proceed forward. But before we do that, we wanted to make sure we got the head nod from everybody and make sure everybody understood exactly what that meant and what we were doing.
Alderman Linville.
So just make sure I'm hearing clearly, we would save more money and the project would move quicker if we decline the funds?
Yes.
Sounds great to me.
Sorry, I should have just said that from the beginning. It's been a long night.
I think we believe that we'll save roughly $5 million by having them do it, not have to deal with the grant strings, and let them put our material on their project, which means we don't have to truck it off. So the problem is if because of the grant we miss their time frames, we now have the grant strings and the cost of the contract, and we have to haul the stuff away and find a place to put it. We think that package is worth about $5 million. So we think turning down what's the grant, 1 point?
It's about $750,000
Yeah.
with the $250 match.
Yeah, so, yeah, okay, I was thinking $1 million, but we think we're more than offsetting that by a factor of several. But we're turning down free money, so we need you to be okay with that.
I'm not hearing any
Nobody's yelling at
naysayers.
me, so I think we're good.
It's a pretty easy one.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Allen, so will you make sure that I don't sign that? So we put back to those people that, thank you. Thank you. Okay, brings us to acknowledgements. Are there any acknowledgements tonight? Alderman Fuquay.
Where to start? So with the tragedy that happened in Murray County, very close to Spring Hill, obviously our staff, Public Works, Fire Department, Police, was on scene almost immediately. Kudos to every department, every body that was on scene shortly after doing their part. You guys get a lot of praise, and so with that, I want to kind of roll over to the community. I have done different cleanups for different disasters, throughout my life. This one was incredible. The very next morning, I wiped my schedule and desperately took my entire company to look for something to do and was turned away because there was too much help, which was incredible. So to everybody that wiped their schedule to go out to help these folks, for our staff and everything, amazing job. That's why I love where we live, the people that I live around, because when disaster strikes, we show up. And it was an absolute amazing sight to see.
Ms. Caskey.
I just want to call out one name we've talked a lot about Public Works and the police and the fire, and they all did a tremendous job. But I really want to call out Greg Boyd, who is our emergency operations manager. He came in, stayed here for a couple of days, showed the governor how to do things, got interviewed for doing some things that were highly technical. And I thought, talk about an unsung hero. One guy in one department just doing an amazing job to help with everything. And it's a new position, so I wanted to make sure that he was specifically called out. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't thank our biggest water boy. We sent Tony Tolstead with water and flashlights into the unknown reaches of Murray County. And so when we say everybody helped. And so I thank all of our staff and all of the folks that called to volunteer. Alderman Fuquay was on my phone that night going, hey, what can I do? I'll cook, I'll help. I got chainsaws. What do I need to do? So there was a lot of outpouring of support, and it really does show you why this is the volunteer state, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.